The chair calls Representative Wheeler.
Thank you, Chairman Roy, Vice Chairman Rhodes, colleagues on the House Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee. For the record, my name is Representative Jonah O'Ryan Wheeler. I represent the towns of Peterborough and Sharon, and I am here in support as a co-sponsor of House Bill 1091. I think Representative Newell and Boschman and Selig did a good job at explaining this, so I will do what I can and do what I do best here, be as brief as I can. But I do want to relay a personal story. I was in Washington earlier this year, and I was speaking to a guy named Otto, and we were reminiscing over our youth homelessness. And he was homeless when he was 20. I was homeless when I was 6. And we were both sort of reminiscing on the state of the United States of America and what, we're specifically Washington, D.C., walking around, you just see people in absolute destitute sitting there on the side of the street. And he relayed a story to me that has stuck with me since, telling me about when he was on DuPont Circle one day, walking through, he sees a guy on the other side of the road wailing and screaming, and he goes over to see what is he's wailing and he's screaming, "Am I real? Am I real? Am I real?" And people are just walking right by him, ignoring him. And I think that illustrates and encapsulates exactly the issue that all of us are having with homelessness here in this country. These people aren't treated like human beings. It's not like, I say it all the time, it's not that they necessarily want you to give them $1, although it would help, but they just want you to acknowledge them as a human being, not just walk past with your blinders on. And I remember when we were homeless, I remember him telling me when he was homeless, and I think anybody who has experienced homelessness can tell you, when you're in a situation like that, it can come completely unexpected. You could be doing so well one day, and then next thing you know, you're in the woods of a place called Hippie Hollow in Greenville, New Hampshire. You know what I mean? Not everyone has a place like Hippie Hollow, though. We did, thankfully. My mother, Rebecca Ann Wheeler, did a fantastic job at keeping us above water, even at a time where we didn't have 4 walls around us and a roof over our head. But not everybody has that ability to do that. And a lot of people here in our state are pushed to places like Manchester and Concord and Laconia and all these other places. If a homeless person is found in Peterborough, I'm sure that person will not be on the streets of Peterborough for very long. They'll end up somewhere in Manchester or Nashua or something along those lines. And so this is a hard issue that we have before us here. And I don't think HB 1091 is going to be a panacea in any way whatsoever, but criminalizing homelessness, as you said, Mr. Chairman, before I entered the room, you can't get blood from a stone. And these people are already at the very bottom of the barrel. And yes, we don't want a situation where public safety is at risks on our streets just because we allow people to sleep wherever, and then next thing you know, everyone's sleeping everywhere. That's, I was having a conversation with the state police liaison, our fantastic liaison for the state police here in the legislature, Chris Storm, and he was mentioning stories about how they had found people on the side of the road in some pretty destitute situations. And what are they supposed to do when they find people like that? And I think that's a reasonable concern. And if this legislation stops them from addressing those people, I would make sure that there was an amendment to do that. But our underlying concern was shared by both the state police, by regardless of party, by people in general. We shouldn't be criminalizing people who are in rock bottom. And I think HB 1091 does a good job at starting the ball moving forward and addressing the humanity of these people on our streets. And no, there's not a easy solution. Many of these people are in mental health crises, and when you offer them help, they refuse it. But there has to be some better way than lobbing fines onto these people who are in the absolute bottom of the barrel. So treat them like a human being. That's what I would say. That's all I can do, and that's what I'm here in the legislature to fight for. So thank you very much for your time, Mr. Chairman, and members of the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Representative. Representative, if we talk about local control and not wanting to take local control, what would it look like if the bill simply said you may not fine or criminally charge anyone for sleeping in public unless you have a bed? In other words, they chose that because we have somewhere else they could have went and not violated the law.
Right off the top of my head, I'd say that looks like a good idea. I guess I would wonder how we determine if the person has a bed or not, but I'm sure that there are ways that that can be done.
Well, in other words, if the shelter's full and
Right.
there's no beds for anybody,
That makes
how
sense
do you
to
charge
me.
somebody?
Okay, that makes sense to me. Yeah.
That's just something that occurred to me. I was curious as a
Well,
co-sponsor what
and
you
that,
thought about that.
that makes sense to me. I would defer to the prime sponsor for any changes of the bill, but I would say that I think the crux of what we're trying to do here is make sure that nobody is criminalizing or penalizing poverty. And that, I think, is the risk with the ordinances that have been passed by the municipalities. And, I'm a supporter of local control too, but I think there are instances where the protection of the broader citizenry is where the state has a play in, and doing this, I think, would be protecting the broader citizenry. But I think that's a good amendment.
Thank you. Representative Scher.
It's my understanding that there are a set of lifestyle, what are sometimes called lifestyle crimes, that are charged. People who are homeless are charged with these lifestyle crimes, and like criminal trespass, for example, in an effort to somehow manage their homelessness potentially through the jail system. Might it make sense going forward, if not in this legislation, to consider having similar amendments to bills charging criminal trespass or charging certain other lifestyle crimes?
I think that it would. I mean, case by case basis for everything, right? But I think that it would, just because we don't, again, want to be in a situation where we're criminalizing poverty, which is what those can do in effect.
Thank you.
Representative Murray, did you have a question? No? Okay. Seeing no further questions, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to bed,
The chair